So let me start today with this. Does anyone listening remember the 2011 Bears season? I know, it's been a while. Let me give you a chance to remember it. The Bears that year started 7-3. They were one of the best teams in the NFC. It looked like they would continue what they did the year before, getting to the NFC Championship game, almost beating Green Bay and going to the Super Bowl. It was possible. It looked likely at that time. Then what happened? Jay Cutler got hurt. Lovie Smith made no adjustments after Cutler got hurt. The offense regressed, and the team that was once 7-3 finished 8-8. Lovie was fired too. My question is, do we see any parallels between 2011 and 2020? The Bears this year started 5-1. Maybe the games were close, but they found a way to win. When they started losing, what adjustments were made? Minimal. None. And now they sit here today after an embarrassing loss on Monday Night Football, and they're 5-5. Do we see any similarities? Is it only me? See, I think 2011 foreshadows what's to come here in 2020. I think the Lovie Smith firing, the fact that there were no adjustments, that same fate could come from Matt Naggy if he does nothing to salvage this season. And I understand the offensive line is an issue. We hear it every single week. And I've said it every single week. O-line is bad, no offensive weapons, quarterback controversy, not going to win many games. All of that is true. But at some point you have to wonder, could it be on the head coach? Now, to Nagy's credit, he did give up play calling, supposedly. But I'll say this, watching that game on Monday, it didn't seem much different offensively. We still saw the screens for -5 yards. We still saw deep shots downfield that couldn't be caught. We saw an interception go off of Anthony Miller's hands. We saw a lot of things that weren't good. The only positive for the entire night was that Cordero Patterson had the kick return. And I guess the second positive is the Bears defense limited Dalvin Cook. Other than that, there was nothing to hang your hat on. And I'm just saying, at some point, you can only ask for so much with these players. At some point, adjustments need to be made higher up. See, for Nagy, giving up play calling is not enough to me. In theory, great adjustment. Selfless. I liked it. You saw me on Twitter. I praised it. But after Monday, I think it's safe to say that that was not enough. See, I think all of this goes beyond the play calling and the offensive line and the weapons. There's a different issue here that we've talked about before on this show. And right now, with Nick Foles being hurt and being considered week to week, it needs to come up again. There's been enough time given to Nick Foles to prove himself. I'll admit, I was skeptical at first. Maybe I was unfair in the way I portrayed him. I'm a Trubisky backer. But at this point, it's pretty obvious what you have with Nick Foles. 10 touchdowns, 8 picks, 81 passer rating. The real question is, what do you have? What do you really have? What makes him better than Mitch Trubisky? Who starts coming up in the next couple of weeks if both guys are healthy? These are serious questions. These could prove to be what allows Matt Nagy to stay or leave, too. You know, I got so much hate on Twitter after the Bears loss. I said it'll be funny because Mitch will be healthy and the Bears will choose not to start him. And a lot of people said I'm crazy, this is a garbage take. But tell me why I'm wrong. It's already happened before, okay? And we know about this now. This is not some theory. This has been put out there. For some reason, whatever it is, Trubisky and Naggy do not click. They don't work well together. They never have. I don't know what it's from. My guess is Naggy never wanted him. He wanted a different quarterback when he came in, and he inherited Mitch, and it didn't really work. That's my take. But that being said, it's pretty unfair to treat someone like that just because you didn't want him. You didn't get the chance to choose him. You inherited him. Not the right way to treat somebody. And I think now we're starting to see this isn't even a Trubisky and Foles thing. This is a Nagy thing. He made the wrong decision back in week 3 to bench Trubisky. Plain and simple. He was doing horrible that game. They needed to. No, they didn't. And if we had a crystal ball and could see 5 or 6 weeks into the future, would you like that decision? Would you say at the time, this will be a good decision for the franchise? No, you wouldn't. Nick Foles has done nothing spectacular. He's driven this team down. They've gotten worse with Foles under center. I'm not going to blame Foles 100%, but I will say this. Who made the decision? Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy chose and decided that Foles was the better option to Mitch. See, now he's stuck, right? Now he's stuck. He decided to invest all of his stock in Nick Foles. Foles isn't working. What is he supposed to do? If you go back to Mitch, you concede that you were wrong. And that's where this whole thing lies in. That's where this whole thing leads back to. Mitch Trubisky will not start another game for the Bears, and it's a shame. Now, it has nothing to do with talent. It has nothing to do with ability. It has nothing to do with upside. We all know that Mitch has more talent, more ability, and more upside than Nick Foles. That's a fact. This whole thing stems on Matt Nagy being wrong. Think about this for a second. Let's say Matt Nagy decides it's time for Mitch to go in. He pulls the plug on Foles, and Trubisky's back as the starter. Imagine what happens if Trubisky succeeds. It'll be a great story for Mitch. Maybe he'll get a free agent contract out of it in the offseason. But what happens to Matt Nagy? My guess is, if the Bears go 10-6 and Trubisky leads them to a playoff appearance, it won't matter. He might get fired. He was the one who made the decision initially to bench Mitch. No one else did. It was his decision, his thought. So what happens if Mitch comes back and succeeds and does great and leads this team to a playoff appearance? Who looks bad? And who could get fired because of it? See, that's a question you always have to ask yourself. Before you make a decision, think. Who does this benefit? Who does this hurt? When Matt Nagy decided, I'm going to put in Nick Foles, it benefited him. Popular opinion at the time was, Mitch is horrible, he's a bust, bench him, put in the Super Bowl MVP. So he did. That didn't work. It still hasn't worked. And it won't work if they continue to do it. So now Nagy's in a bit of a pickle. What is he supposed to do? He could stick with Foles, ride it out. If the Bears don't make the playoffs, he'll be on the hot seat. Or he could put Mitch back in. But if he does that, he concedes, I was wrong. He admits to everybody indirectly that he made the wrong decision in benching Mitch in the first place. How do you think that'll look on him? How do you think his status as the Bears head coach will change even if the Bears succeed? Because remember, it's his judgment. If the Bears go 10-6 and make it and they're in with Mitch coming back, that's great, but people will ask, why was he benched in the first place? All of that blame will go right back to Naggy. And he'll be in trouble. He may lose his job. He's in a lose-lose situation right now. See, if he sticks with Foles and they miss the playoffs, he's done. If he puts in Trubisky and the Bears win and they do great, he still could be done. It was his decision. He made it prematurely. Everyone knows it. It may not have been apparent before. To some people, it still may not be apparent. People who love Nick Foles and think he's 2017 Nick Foles, even though it's 2020. But the majority of people who watch the Bears intently know this was a bad decision. It should have never been made, and it was unfair to Mitch to do that. I'm telling you, Matt Naggy literally has dug himself a grave. So for those wondering, well, Mitch is definitely going to come back, you're wrong. Everybody telling me on Twitter, you're crazy to think that Mitch won't come back even if he's healthy. No, I'm not. Because think about who's making the decision. Think about who benefits and who could get hurt from putting Mitch back in. Again, people not thinking, we have to think about this. We have to think about this logically. Who benefits, who gets hurt? Cost-benefit analysis. It's 101. If Mitch comes back in and he succeeds, who's in trouble? Not Mitch, not the Bears as a team, the coach, for making the wrong decision initially to bench him. If Foles stays in and the Bears go 8-8, miss the playoffs, who else is in trouble? Not Foles. People will say, oh, that was an offensive line issue, that was a weapons issue. They're going to blame Matt Naggy. It's not always right, but this adage holds all the time. The head coach and the quarterback get all the credit and all the blame. But in this case, it actually does hold. Matt Naggy made this decision. He's the one who has to live with it either way. I'm telling you right now, I would not be surprised if Tyler Bray starts, even if Mitch is healthy, against Green Bay. I wouldn't be shocked, because who stands to benefit and who stands to get hurt? Matt Naggy would get severely hurt if he puts back in Trubisky and the Bears do great. That's a fact. His job will be in big trouble, as if it already wasn't. And he'll have to face the music. Why did you bench Mitch? Why put in Foles? See, the Bears are doing great with Mitch. Why did you bench him? I would not be shocked at all if Tyler Bray is starting on Sunday against Green Bay. Who benefits? Who gets hurt? Matt Naggy may never come back from it if Mitch goes in, lights it up, and puts the Bears into the playoffs. Even if the Bears succeed, everyone will know and remember, hey, he's the one who benched him, right? Why'd he do that? Why'd he make that decision? I thought they were winning with Mitch. Why bench him? But if the Bears keep Foles in and they continue to lose, Nagy's also in trouble. And Foles is too, to an extent. So think about it. Logical option here. Put in Tyler Bray. Has a good arm. Inaccurate, but maybe he'll play a couple of snaps. Maybe he'll play the whole game. Who knows? Don't count it out, though, and don't be surprised if it happens. Always keep this in the back of your head. Who benefits? Who's going to be in trouble if Mitch does well? Everybody. Because everyone for years has blamed Mitch Trubisky for the Bears' shortcomings. It's his fault, wrong pick, horrible player, draft bust. But if he comes back and does great, all of that hate and negativity won't go to Mitch. It's going to go to Matt Nagy. Why'd you bench him? They were winning. Why'd you bench him? That whole question is going to be all over the place. Media pundits like myself and other people in this business have already said, put in Mitch. Sunday proved it. I read 4 or 5 columns saying it's time to put in Mitch. Put him back in. The movement is happening again. Naggy and the Bears caved to popular opinion. They thought Nick Foles was somehow the real deal, and it obviously didn't work. That's not rocket science. That was apparent even before the year began, but whatever. Now, though, they're in a much tougher position. Much tougher. You put in Trubisky and the Bears win, you're in trouble, Matt Nagy. If you continue to bench Trubisky, maybe you won't make the playoffs, and then you're also in trouble. The question is, what will the Bears do? Remember, if Matt Nagy is truly selfless and truly cares about the success of this team, this decision should be a no-brainer. You should put back in Trubisky. But as we all are, we're human. He's definitely going to worry about his job and the possible ramifications of Trubisky succeeding after he decided to bench him. That is something that no one's talking about, that needs to be analyzed and considered. This isn't just an X's and O's football decision. If it was, Mitch would already be back in. This is a precedent. This is all about a precedent. Should I go back on myself if I'm Matt Nagy? Should I publicly put myself through that? Do I want to answer the tough questions? Do I want to entertain the fact that if the Bears do well and Mitch goes back in and leads us to the playoffs, what happens to my job? These are serious questions. These are part of the reasons why we haven't seen a change yet, and why maybe Mitch was yanked a bit early. At the time, popular opinion, take out Mitch, and Nagy wanted to do it to keep his job. Now, he's facing the completely opposite situation. Popular opinion has shifted once again, and people are starting to wonder, was that the right decision from the very beginning? Mitch Trubisky is not a bad quarterback, and I've been appalled at the amount of people who've gone after him week in and week out for no reason. Foles is way better than Mitch. So happy the Bears made this decision. When you compare both of them, I need you to ask yourself one question. Who has more upside? Is it Nick Foles, the mid-30-year-old, whose glory days are far in his past? Or is it Mitch, who's still young, top pick, has succeeded before, and could do it again? If your honest answer is Nick Foles, then you know nothing about the game of football. The reason why I said that Trubisky may not start has nothing to do with talent and has nothing to do with even health. I'd throw that all away. Remember, who wins and who loses if Mitch starts? Imagine Mitch starts. Let's say he does well, leads the Bears to the playoffs. Who's in trouble? Not Mitch, not the team, Matt Nagy. People will ask, why'd you bench him? The Bears were 2-0 and you took him out. Why? You think he wants to answer those questions? You think he wants to deal with that? You think his job is on the line? It was his call. That's a judgment call. His judgment was wrong. He could get fired, even if the Bears do great. That's the reason why Mitch may not start, even if he's healthy. That's why. Matt Nagy does not want to face the music. I don't blame him. Who would? There's a huge disincentive to put in Mitch Trubisky. If the Bears do well, who's in trouble? Who's going to have to really face the music and answer tough questions and may lose his job? Matt Nagy. It's apparent. So for all of you coming after me, don't. This has nothing to do with health. This has nothing to do with ability or skill. Now it's become a political thing. Now we're starting to wonder, well, even if Trubisky succeeds, what happens to Matt Nagy? That's the question, and that's the thought you have to have in your head. This isn't just X's and O's football. We're far past that. We are. Because if this was X's and O's football, Mitch would have never been benched. Now we're talking about who's trying to save his job, who's in trouble if Mitch succeeds, and who's not in trouble if Mitch comes in and does well. Those are the questions that have to be asked. No one's asking them. No one's thinking about them. They should be. Mitch Trubisky is obviously the better option here. And the Bears have a tough decision to make, and Matt Nagy does too. If I were them, if Mitch is healthy, start him. Even if Foles is hurt, if you care about winning, put in Mitch. If you're worried about job security, which makes sense, then you'll continue to see Nick Foles and the Bears not score any points, probably go 8-8, 7-9. And then we'll see a lot of people in trouble, and a lot of people might lose their jobs. Believe it or not, the only hope that's left for the Bears is putting Mitch back in. Hey, he's the only one who's successfully won games and won them consistently this season. Who's to say he can't do it again? That's what needs to be talked about. That's what needs to be discussed. Not the O-line, no weapons. We've heard enough about that. Okay, the quarterback, that's the issue now. There's a bye week. Take some time to think and come in ready to play, because if you don't, you will not make the playoffs. You will collapse like you did in 2011. And a lot of people may be out of work. More to come here on Sports Talk Chicago. My interview with Troy Macker comes up next, so stay tuned. Hey, do you want to make some money this weekend? What if I told you that I could offer you $250 free to bet on any game you want? Here's what you have to do. Go to sportstalkchicago.com/cash, sportstalkchicago.com/cash. You must be 21 or over. You must be an Illinois resident. You can get $250 free to bet on any game you want this weekend. College football, NFL, a lot of stuff going on. And we talk about it here in a couple of minutes with Troy Macker. Some great bets coming up this weekend. You really got to check it out and use this deal. Again, go to sportstalkchicago.com/cash, sportstalkchicago.com/cash. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.